Greetings everybody, welcome back. This is Siobhán, the Celtic Empath, aka the Celtic Empath, and I'm coming to you here from a very windy and blustery, apparently a storm is raging over the rest of the country, but not as bad as where I live at the moment. I just had to get that in because I'm Irish, so I did have to lead with the weather forecast. But welcome back. Thank you for everybody that has been subscribing and watching and listening to my videos. And so yeah, I'm going to get into it. Again, I want to follow on with continuing with like a weekly sort of catch up or a weekly talk or just a weekly vlog, and it's probably going to take different formats, going from like last Friday where the weather was reasonable that I could be outside and go walking, I suppose, and that, you know, the weather wasn't going to interfere with the recording, whereas today I'm going to attach just a few short clips just of what the weather is like today from the front door of my house, which will be kind of interesting, and clips that were taken all within the space of 15 minutes basically of each other, ranging from sunshine, blue skies, to absolute like windy dark skies where you can't see the sky, it's just cloud, and to like a hailstorm. So that is our condition here. So today I'm sitting in at my house, a little space that I've cleared for myself where I can just kind of sit and focus and do this kind of work, which is important, I suppose, to have a space, you know, where you can feel that you can work from, even if it is indoors or outdoors, that you end up still like creating a little space that is yours, you know, and you start to feel grounded into doing something or creating something when you're trying to create something new from your life, and something that might be quite different. And when I say different, last week, my weekly vlog last week, I mentioned about perfectionism, the idea of like perfectionism and what does that entail, because I think like a lot of us, and if we tend to reflect on things or self-reflect, that perhaps with the world of information that is at our fingertips now, and the amount of like positive living and love light statements that you know, there's so much positive memes, things that go around on the internet now. I think that a lot of us are more okay with the idea of there is no real idea of perception or perfection, should I say, that the concept of perfection is kind of like false, that there is no real such thing as perfect. And it's, you know, it's a thing that like we have these kind of self-imposed ideas of perfection, and like even if we aren't consciously thinking in terms of creating perfectively, yeah, that still there has been this strange kind of conditioning and thinking of people feeling that they have to create or be almost perfect or do things really well. And it's all part of like comparing ourselves when we go on social media, because, you know, this is the world. It's become such a real world, like the world of social media, which isn't kind of real in a lot of ways, and yet it's like unbelievable what it offers to us, what it has become, particularly in the past couple of years. But like this, sometimes we can have like a program or a belief or a concept connected in with our own feelings of self-worth or self-esteem around creating something that has to be maybe really good or almost perfect. And we may not even call it perfect, but it may actually be part of the statement where we say this isn't good enough, what I'm doing isn't enough, what I'm creating isn't enough, what I'm speaking isn't enough. And that's the perfectionism that comes into it. And so that stops us, doesn't it? That like stops us in our tracks. It might stop a lot of people who want to do things online who want to create things, who want to start creating a new way of living, whether it's going to be creating videos for social media, whether it's doing things like this, just talking into a camera, whatever it is. If you're creating something new, and it doesn't have to be especially artistic or in my own field or area, which is the healing arts as such at the moment, it doesn't really matter. There's this striving that because of the quality of things that we have access now as well, that we get to see what other people are producing, there can be this awful sense of comparing ourselves and then impeding ourselves to not actually doing, and thinking that our stuff isn't at the standard of what the best or highest standard is at the moment. And I think that this stops a lot of people from actually getting on with what it is that they want to do. And I think that it can stop you in a lot of other ways as well then, once you start that comparing process to what you're seeing online and what other people are doing online. And unfortunately, when you switch off Facebook or come off of Instagram or switch off YouTube, that you're still left with all of that. You're still left with all of that feeling of how what you were witnessing on a YouTube video, for example, somebody that you admire, that you like, that you're following, and that you really like the work that they're creating. But you perhaps, one part of you thinks, oh God, I would love to do that. I love what they're doing, and you feel inspired by them. And then you think, God, I would like to really do something like that. And then the reality sometimes of going about doing it as well, there's a lot of things to consider. An awful lot of things to consider that goes on behind camera in creating things. And I'm only just speaking to my own experience, really, because this is my own experience of stepping out of what I call the spiritual closet and talking about my own spiritual truths. And you'll see from the inconsistency of what I post on YouTube that there is a lot of inconsistency that comes with blocking or stopping or not feeling like as if what you have to say is anything more different to what 100 different or even 1,000 different channels of various different people are saying. There's so much stuff out there on social media, and it's overwhelming as well. And that's another part of the perfectionism, is this overwhelming sense of can I create, can I do one thing today to work towards creating and doing what I want to do. But the striving to make it happen or to do it, or that it has to be, when we do it, oh my God, it's not good enough, it needs to be better than what I've done before. And even though all of those things in essence are truth, because it is good, of course, that we have our own standards and that we see our mistakes and we look back, and that's how we improve ourselves, just even as humans, that we improve our work regardless of what it is that we can actually see where we're going wrong or see what our mistakes are. But what I wanted to really talk about in relation to perfectionism is the fact that, okay, so one, this striving to create perfect, really good quality, whatever it is, videos, for example, my own experience, or in relation to creating maybe artwork or in creating instructional videos or courses, is this sense of that it might not be good enough comparatively to all the brilliant, amazing productions that we see out there. And then when we delve into it, we find out that we need to have maybe lots of different equipment. We need to have specialist lights. We need to have so many different types of adapters depending what type of technology you're using. So there's a lot of things that have to be covered in relation to having a really good quality or high quality output video, even if it's a reel. You know, sometimes there are people out there who, I mean, that's their job, is to create content and is to must be, if they're being paid for it, to create really good content and good quality stuff. And that's a whole other area. What I want to remind us when we are in this like spiritual field, and we're working here as energy workers, regardless of how we define ourselves, natural healers, as empaths, as spiritualists, whatever it is, that we can only start where we are. We can only start where we are at today, with the resources that we have, with the abilities that we have, with the knowledge that we have. And it's not until we put it into action that we see, do we want, what do we want to do better? What improvements do we want to make, or can we make? And so I was watching a YouTube video, and it's a really very informal, very casual type of channel. This person doesn't use fancy lights. They don't have loads of technology. Not even sure if they even own a computer. I think they do everything on their mobile phone. And it's quite basic in terms of, it's just plain footage from the phone. They don't use apps to improve the quality of the photography or the images or the sound. They don't even use the microphone when they're talking outside. And I love these videos. They're just pure, they're raw, they're honest, and you can listen to the person's voice as they speak. Now, this person does get a lot of complaints about the quality of the video. But at the end of the day, like, this person isn't there. Their main priority isn't in life to have to produce quality videos. Their main priority is actually what they're making the video about. The video is about permaculture in a nutshell. It's about permaculture and how this person has dedicated their life to living a simple, simplistic, basic life, and developing permaculture and sustainability and living off of the land and being self-sufficient. And so, no, they don't spend all of their time and their money and resources into getting the best technology to create the best permaculture videos. So this is just one example. I could use myself as an example, because I also have not invested into loads of technology, into trying to create better content, having a better stage, or better backgrounds or environments. If you watched my weekly vlog last week, like, you know, there's a lot of things you could criticize about it and say, well, it wasn't really great. And part of the criticism, of course, is that women come up, and the judgment and the insecurity about how you look on camera and how you're going to look and how you might be criticized for looking. And I do find that interesting. And again, so this again relates to the idea of like perfectionism and stopping ourselves from doing things, putting our work out there, putting it out there onto social media, and the true thing is, the real thing is about finding the format that really actually works and suits us. And so I do eventually, I'm going to work more towards podcasting and kind of doing more talking and voice, so that you hear my voice and that you're not so focused on the visual and the image. And that is one of my goals that I do have down the road. I have started setting up some podcasting in a small way at the moment, but when I really start to build my momentum, it's going to be more about the audio and the voice, because the voice is perhaps less distracting when you actually have an image, because when you have an image, there's so much more too that people start looking at and disseminating. And especially for women, I know that in talking to other women, it's one thing that stops women who are within the spiritual realm, the spiritual arts, from putting themselves up there onto social media, onto camera, is because they're worried about how they're going to be criticized, judged, complimented or not complimented about how they look, and comparing themselves to other people and how they may look on camera. And like, this is, you could say at its core, it's kind of, well, maybe superficial, but it's part of the insecurity. It's part of that part where we're not really connecting into spirit, and we're letting our humanness kind of override our work a little bit. And I'm noticing within the spiritual communities, and I can talk to that experience, but I'm sure it's within other areas as well, but this is my existence. But from talking with some other women in the spiritual community, I do notice that it does hold them back from putting their work out there, because we are told now, if you go on social media, like, you put yourself on camera or you make videos or something, because video is where it's all at now, and reels and stuff, okay? And so it is definitely a challenge, and it's really that it's harder for women, I think, to do it, because we get away with less. Like last week I had close-ups of my face, and like today now I have a ring light over me, and so, you know, you get all this nice reflection and stuff, and at least, you know, I don't look the same as I did exactly last week, because I have like this set light in front of me. But there's still a challenge regardless for us to feel comfortable enough in ourselves, so that if I criticize myself enough, then where am I going with this? If I criticize myself enough initially, and I go, right, these are all the possible criticisms that I might receive as a woman when I put myself on camera and I'm not looking perfect, or I haven't created the perfect angle, or I'm not using a filter, I don't use filters, or I haven't got the right lighting and stuff. And so I criticize myself first initially, and I think, well, how do you feel about that? What do you think about that? You know, is that fair? Is it right? And I do go through this process. And so there is a big process, even still for me, before I put myself on camera. I have to say that that's a lessening. But there's this point of pushing through where you push through. It's important to push through in order to just say, well, you know, flip it, because my work is more important. What spirit wants me to do and talk about to get myself out there more is more important than just the I, which is, you know, the feeding the ego part. If I wanted to start feeding my ego, the I part of my ego, which I don't, but there's this kind of term. So like, you know, in what I think is kind of happening at the moment, and I don't know if you're going to like even agree with me, because sometimes I will kind of bring things down to the finest detail, but in terms of like where we're at with our concepts of ascension and 5D, so we're trying to move away from like old programming, old ideas, old belief systems, and programming in terms of what we've been exposed to in the media, in every format of media right across the board, in every country, no matter where you live. And I see this kind of transferring into social media, and this is part of the perfectionism block that's, I think, you know, impeding people then from making that transition over from being exposed to watching perfect programming on the television, looking at perfect people, perfect situations, perfect scenarios, and being entertained. And then a lot of it has transitioned onto social media platforms, and particularly we'll just keep it at YouTube for the moment. And so now I notice that like a lot of YouTubers are calling their channels shows, you know, a show. And I want to just ask the question, you know, what are we creating? What are we recreating on social media? Because I thought, look, the concept of moving away from programming, moving away from fake news media and all of those, that mind programming arena, is that we were to hopefully transition and create something that's new, and new in terms of not being entertained so much in the traditional sense that we're used to it. And that I'm looking for a development in relation to this, maybe to the vernacular of how we are speaking to shows. And So I think that there is something going on, like something that's cognitive dissonance, a disconnection at the moment, that people are now going onto YouTube and they're looking to be entertained, they're looking to see perfect, women have to look perfect and beautiful, they can't look tired or, grey or pale or whatever. And, women have to look a certain way when they're on camera. And like, it's none of it is true. And if we're deconditioning from the false matrix, 3D matrix, and to be transitioning over to the 5D, I feel like we need to become more aware of the words, the terminology, and the vernacular that we are using around what it is that we're recreating now for us spiritually. So I do have like a bit of a block when it comes to people calling their YouTube channels shows, and there's plenty of them out there now. And I know that in one sense we can relate to that, because that's what we're used to seeing and observing and viewing. But at the same time, I always get this kind of it's almost like a tightening feeling that comes when I start seeing people now presenting themselves on YouTube, saying like, we are the new show, we're the new entertainment, we're the entertainment of the future, and calling their channels shows. And it feels really uncomfortable, it feels strange, and they might look at me and go, oh, what the hell is she trying to do? Because she's not doing all of this stuff perfectly. She doesn't have a big microphone, she doesn't have nice big lights, she doesn't have all the technology, she doesn't have a great background. Like, whatever, the stuff is so unimportant and actually unnecessary. As a man, I think men can get away with it, because I see lots of men on YouTube who are doing all kinds of like haphazard, windy, sort of out in all kinds of weather, without the microphones, without the technology, and they definitely do not get the run of comments that I notice that women get. And it is surprising to me that often women who are talking about really important information and bringing forward lots of really good information, that the comment thread would be full of people complimenting them, telling them how good they look today, or, I love your hair like this, or you're so beautiful. And like, all of the comments could be just about the woman's appearance. And I'm sorry if you don't like me saying this, but this is an observation that I'm observing when I look at comment threads and go through the comments. So there's this different experience, definitely for men and for women, and it's stopping women from putting themselves forward, it's stopping them from putting themselves out there to be seen. Because if you're only going to be judged yet again, like in 3D matrix programming, as to how beautiful or good you look, then once again it's transferring over to YouTube, that the woman first has to have this value of her appearance, of what she's offering and giving. And that's the old paradigm. That's the old paradigm of living and taking and criticizing a woman's energy, and feeling that a woman has to give so much more in order for her to receive back. And that's ending, that's stopping, that's coming to an end, that's changing. But there is a challenge of switching our mentality, our energy around this, around how we look on camera, and what it is that we're doing or saying in relation to the work that we need to bring forward, that we speak about, or that we decide to show, if we decide to show our faces or not. So that's it. It's a question that I just want to pose. It's something that I've been reflecting on, and I wonder if other people have considered or reflected about this as well, if it's something that has come up in other people's minds. Does it bother you that like other YouTube channels now in the, I don't know what to call us, because we're called so many things now, conspiracy theorists, the spiritual communities, light work communities, the love light community, on and on and on. Like, I think that, I think that we need to change our mentality about for TV and being entertained, and that I want to look for new words, new ways that we can relate to information and how it's being portrayed. And I guess that takes a bit of time for something new to emerge and for something new to be created. But I guess I can say that I won't be calling my channel the Celtic Empath Show anytime soon. And I hope if you do think about putting your work up there on YouTube or other platforms, that you might think about the word show and what that actually really means in terms of vernacular. And also, I'm not a gematria specialist or anything, but I would be curious to know actually what is the gematria of the word show, because if everything that we've been told about 3D programming and what's happening through our televisions, frequencies and stuff, that's, you know, been like tuning people into different nefarious type frequencies, you know, being programmed, the television. So what does the word show really actually mean in terms of that information? So that's just my thoughts for this week. I have some more videos, I have loads of ideas lined up, and it's actually just a matter of trying to get through the work and get the stuff done. But if you're considering actually, you know, as a light worker, putting yourself up on camera onto social media, this is the year to really start doing it. Like, just do it, stop putting it off. You know, it's like there is this crossing over point, you know, this painful point that you have to stretch out of your comfort zone and break through that kind of barrier, whether it's just starting to post a little bit more or putting up the occasional picture or meme, whatever it is, of your work, introducing your work or yourself. And it doesn't even have to be a face picture, but just your links to your websites, to talking about finding and developing that way of how you want to talk and express about your work and who you are. And who cares if it takes a few months, a few years? There's no better time, I think, to start now. This is the year 2022 and we're coming to the 22nd of February, so that portal is closing for the manifestation portal energy. That's really, really powerful. Not that I'm actually big into the whole manifestation ideology of manifestation. I think it works for some people but not for everybody, but I do believe in energy and frequency. I do believe and connect into the flow and magic of different energies that are changeable, and some are more powerful depending on different times of the year. So with that, I'm going to love you and leave you. Thank you very much for listening, and if you've made it this far, thank you very much for coming this far with me. But yeah, please, you know, go ahead, like, subscribe and like, share, and leave your comments below, particularly if you've done the gematria on the word show. I'd be really interested in reading that. So slán agus beannacht.